Hey there guys, Micah Curtis here. Good to see everyone today. For those of you who watched the big reveal of Grindstone Arts, I want to thank all of you for being there. It seems like the reception has been largely positive, which makes me excited because I'm really stoked about being able to get you guys some great comic books. And I'm pretty well convinced that this PayPal situation is gonna get sorted out sooner than later. But regardless, we're looking at getting other books out to you because the great thing about Grindstone as a publishing house is that we're not just doing the sleeveless comic stuff. We've got reconstruction books that are going to be on the way. We've got stuff that doesn't fit into either comic book universe that we're going to be developing so that we can consistently have stuff out there. Like, this isn't just a thing that we made, that we just call our stuff. This is a company. I've registered the LLC. I am 100% committed to making this something that can compete with the mainstream as time goes on. And hopefully you guys will continue to support us. Trust me when I tell you guys, all of you are appreciated. Very much so. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about this subject, because the last video I did on modern writing came pretty close to getting 1,000 views. I figured that this one might be a little bit more, how do I put this? Poignant, I guess, to the modern day, because this is a trope that is starting to emerge and not in a positive way. And that is the new strong female archetype. Now, here's the thing. I need to clarify this out of the gate. This is not a video where I'm speaking out against the idea of having female protagonists or having female characters that are action-oriented or things along those lines. I like quite a few characters that are women that are like that. Not just superheroes either. In film and video games, so on and so forth. The problem that we have is that there is this new archetype that is being created of the quote-unquote strong female, where it seems like modern writers have a desire to cast aside traditionally feminine traits because they are under the impression that that's what makes someone strong. It's not because the traits are really a negative, though. It's more because they're traditional. And there is an assumption under a certain part of the political zeitgeist that basically assumes that because of these, traditionally feminine traits are created under a patriarchy, that, they have to be cast aside and everything has to be redefined, yada, yada, yada. Now, how do I come to that conclusion, you might ask? Well, oddly enough, back during the days of the meme war, for journalistic research, I actually looked into the master's thesis of one Anita Sarkeesian. Now, Anita Sarkeesian is not some sort of great mind. She really is a dime-a-dozen third-wave feminist, but she's a dime-a-dozen third-wave feminist that has somehow gained a lot of influence among certain circles, and by reading what she was putting in there, I essentially got a view into what the people who listened to her, which is way too many people, were likely going to start doing. And then, lo and behold, as we have seen over the last 10 years, we get more and more of this quote-unquote strong female archetype. And how exactly is this archetype playing out, you might ask? Well, these characters tend to feel like men with breasts. Their feminine characteristics are almost non-existent. Their attitudes are either they just react to the situations around them, or they are very surly and rude and unpleasant human beings. And there's no reason for them to be unpleasant as well, or to be rude, or to be cruel, or anything along those lines. They just are that way. On top of that, you also have characters that end up having no character outside of their sexuality. Oddly enough, one character that fits into this was a character that was the opposite in the game previous to when she existed, and that was the character of Ellie from The Last of Us. In The Last of Us 1, Ellie was really a nice girl who had problems because she's a teenager and was just trying to figure out what to do with her situation in the same way that Joel was. You know, it's like, what do we do with this apocalypse, you know? What do we do with all this other stuff? What do we do with the importance of this girl? So on and so forth, you know? These are things that, you know, made her a likable character because she was going through some, you know, coming of age kind of ideas in the worst place to have them. But a coming of age story is a type of story that just about anybody can identify with, right? Well, in The Last of Us 2, she is ridiculously rude, ridiculously surly, ridiculously mean. And on top of all of that, it really feels like the only time that you get anything that's really a positive element of her character is when she's doing lesbian stuff. And I think that a lot of that just has to do with the fact that Neil Druckmann is a bad writer. And I'm not trying to be rude about it, I'm being honest. Neil Druckmann is not very good. He is not very talented. He got where he is in the video game industry through politicking, not because he earned it. But either way, that's a really good example of that. And there's a lot of these characters that are out there, and the unfortunate thing is that they have sort of poisoned the well for characters that don't have these problems to really come in and, you know, actually allow them to thrive. For example, there were a lot of people that were immediately screaming woke about the 5th Gears of War game because the character of Kate, who was one of the main characters in Gears of War 4, was going to be taking over the protagonist role for a chunk of the story. In fact, the vast majority of it, to be honest with you. But the thing about Kate Diaz is that Kate Diaz doesn't really fit the strong female trope. The only way that she kind of fits the archetype is that she has short hair, to be honest with you. She's not overly muscular. She doesn't look masculine whatsoever. She's actually stick skinny. She moves like a woman. She walks like a woman. She sachets her hips, for God's sake. And on top of that, she can be a very sweet girl. She can be a very supportive person. She has a warmth to her. She has a sense of modesty to her. And she can be very devoted. All of those are considered traditionally feminine traits that she possesses that a lot of these strong female characters do not possess. And because of that, the well got poisoned for that character and people just simply didn't give her a chance, which is unfortunate because Gears 5 is an enjoyable game. And that's, generally speaking, my problem with this trend, is that it is largely poisoning the well for people to want to give female leads a chance, because more often than not, these characters come out in one of 3 ways. They're a dude with boobs, they are just the lesbian, you know, their only characterization, their only character trait, rather, is their sexuality, or they're just ridiculously rude and not the type of people you want to really be around. And then, of course, on top of all of that, there's also the Mary Sue characters. Basic idea is that instead of getting rid of the feminine traits, what you're doing instead is just making sure that this character never suffers and that every person around them is an idiot compared to them, and yada, yada, yada. But the whole Mary Sue, Gary Stu thing is a discussion for another time. Regardless, that is largely what the problem is that we've got writers that seem to think that if you're going to make a strong lead that is a woman, that you need to do these things. And I could not disagree more. And the funny thing is that over the last, I want to say month or so, because this has been a topic that's been on my mind for a while, I've had a look at characters back when they were well-written and enjoyable and well-rounded characters. And that's part of the reason I'm playing Resident Evil 2. And both the remake version of Claire and the original version of Claire apply here, because both of them obviously are very feminine. They look like women, they move like women, things of those natures. They're not as physically strong as their male counterparts. Things that basically show off the fact that we are a sexually dimorphic species, right? But the thing about Claire is that she can handle a gun. She's tough as nails. She soldiers forward. She tries to do the right thing. And all in all is a good person. She's kind, she's helpful, devoted, understanding, all of these feminine traits, but she's also a bad lady because she picked up some fighting traits, well, not traits, but skills from her brother, and uses them in her own way, and really has this mentality of, I'm going to get this girl, in regards to Sherry Birkin, out of town. I'm going to get these people to safety. I'm going to do the right thing. And I'm going to, shoot anything in the face that tries to get in between me and my goal. That is a strong female character in the sense that there are traits that make her feminine, but there's also traits that, in my opinion, are universal, that allow for a connection between anybody who's in the audience. I think Claire Redfield is somebody that anybody can get behind. Giggity giggity. Sorry. But she's a character anybody can get behind because of the determination, because of the desire to see the right thing done, because of her moral compass, things of that nature. Those are the sort of things that you can get behind. Of course, Jill Valentine is similar to that. Now, Jill, in the remake timeline, was a little bit more surly, but it was kind of understandable, considering everything that she went through in Arclay, and then, on top of that, being suspended from the police force. And one little element of the kind of environmental storytelling in the remake of Resident Evil 3 is that you'll notice that there's a lot of beer bottles in her apartment. She's been drinking a lot, so she's not in the best state of mind, but she still has, again, positive feminine traits. That's why I think a lot of people like Jill Valentine, is that, yes, she is a tomboy in a lot of ways, but she's still a woman. And those sorts of traits, those desirable traits, are things that both men and women enjoy. Because nobody wants to be around a bitchy person. Nobody wants to be around a surly person. Or people who are incapable of modesty, incapable of supportiveness, or those sorts of traits that people see as positives. And when it comes right down to it, I think that the solution to the problem is to go back to basics. Characters like Claire Redfield, Jill Valentine, they follow how do I put this? They follow an example. I think the most notable example of positive, strong femininity in probably most of the arts, of entertainment, is the character of Ripley from Alien and the Alien franchise as a whole. The thing about Ripley is a take charge person. She is someone that understands what has to be done. She's willing to put her foot down. She is willing to be loud when she needs to be listened to. Some people might consider those things masculine traits. And, you wouldn't be necessarily wrong. Some people would consider those traditionally masculine. However, Ripley has a lot of feminine traits too. And if you want to see all of those traditional feminine traits, it's very simple. Put her around Newt. Now, for those of you who know the story of Aliens in the background, is that Ripley was actually a mother. She had a husband, she had a daughter, and sadly, because she spent so much time in cryosleep, they passed away. It's a sad part of the movie Aliens that unfortunately got cut, but if you have the quadrilogy, like I do on DVD, because I bought it like the instant I first started getting money as an adult, you get to watch the extended cut of the film, and you get all those nice little details, which are a lot of fun. But anyway, Ripley, of course, was kind of the foundation that a lot of other characters were based on, and I think that, generally speaking, the biggest mistake that is made when it comes to creating a strong female character is assuming that femininity is a negative, that these things are meant to be cast aside because they are traditional. That is a stupid way of looking at it. I really hate in the modern day, just the simple fact that, first off, the political zeitgeist has such an influence on the creative arts. It legitimately annoys me because it stops writers from thinking, because they're too worried about what's on CNN and they're not worried enough about what happens when they put pen to paper, which is why one of the principles of Grindstone Arts is that we are not looking to make political statements, we're looking to create fun stories. But anyway, enough tooting my company's horn there. The thing that you have to keep in mind when it comes to creating a strong female character is you have to think of how we define strength. And then you have to think of how each gender can put that forward, but still remain distinctive. And that's on the very base level. Take a character like Alita from Battle Angel Alita, Gundam, whatever you want to call it. It's one of my favorite manga ever. Alita is a very feminine character. She's a sweetheart. She is a very sweet person. And, that's part of what I think her appeal is. Anybody who's watched the movie, I'll flat out tell you that Alita in the movie is almost 1-to-1 with the manga. And, man alive, she's very easy to like because she's just a nice girl. She's a kind person, but she'll whoop your ass if she has to, because sometimes the job's just got to get done. I think that determination and that will is the one thing that people of all backgrounds can get behind, because those are the traits that we all need to have to get anything done in our lives, right? And I think that that's a good foundation and a good place to start. And of course, you want to give your characters different motivations and things of that nature. But never assume that the traditional traits are a bad thing. I would actually go so far as to say that it's stupid to look at them as traditional. If this is something that we can observe literally millennia before the modern day and has continued up to and is probably going to continue past this point, it is no longer just traditional. It is timeless. And that is the thing. If you start thinking about certain ideas as traditional and traditional is bad, you are limiting your ability to understand humanity and how humanity works. If you limit your ability to understand how humanity works, you become a shit writer. There's no other way to put it. Writers have to have an innate idea of how people work. It is key to some of the best writers that have existed. And when they start to give up that sort of thing for these political ideas and these political ways of writing and these political influences of, feminism, wokeness, whatever you want to call it, you start to see their work slip. For example, take Kevin Smith and the way he would write women prior to his embrace of the modern woke culture. It is night and day. That's the same thing with a lot of writers. And then look at the writers that didn't necessarily follow those traits. They wrote better women. Warren Ellis is a really good example of that. One of my favorite writers ever. Who is probably one of the most likable characters in animation, adult animation, including anime, over the last 10 years? Sypha from Castlevania. She's great. And she has all of those feminine traits. She's a really sweet woman. She's funny, too. And she's got a temper on her. But those traits make her enjoyable because she's also very sweet. She's very kind. She wants to do the right thing. Things of that nature. So, I need to get to the conclusion because I'm rambling on. There's a lot of great female characters out there. One of them is Peregrine from the Grindstone Arts catalog under the Reconstruction universe. By the way, get on that St. Peregrine mailing list, man. I'll talk more about that here in a second. But the conclusion that I come to is this. Just because something is traditional doesn't mean it's wrong. The assumption is stupid. Some things are timeless, and femininity is one of those things, because as humans, we will always be sexually dimorphic. Always. There's nothing we can change about it. It's in our genes. As such, embrace it. Embrace the differences. Embrace those things that make us different. Because at the end of the day, what you're going to find in those differences, in these positive feminine traits that have been there since the dawn of time, is you're going to find the things that people like about characters. You embrace that, your character writing will get better, your understanding of characterization will get better, and ultimately, you're going to create characters that people want to read, people want to be around, people want to see more of. If Capcom can understand that in a fucking zombie franchise, you should be able to understand it anywhere else if you are a good writer, or at least you claim to be. On that note, guys, I want to thank you all so much once again. One thing I'm going to say specifically today is that the Grindstone Arts social media accounts on Instagram and Twitter are in the description. So follow them, especially if you're an artist, because there is a good chance that we are going to be putting out calls for art whenever we need people, because we got a lot of projects cooking. We're going to need people for covers. We're going to need people for pages, for prints, things of that nature. And that'll be money straight for your pocket if you're willing to put in the time and the effort. So follow us on Twitter on top of following me if you're not already, or X or whatever we're calling it. Instagram as well. We'll probably branch out as well. There's even going to be a Grindstone Arts YouTube channel soon as well. So be on the lookout for that. So, on top of that, 3 nights, 4 days, still on Indiegogo. Go snag it. Same with my novella, American Monsters. It is the prequel to the comic book Project Lazarus. You're going to want to read it. And then, of course, finally, the mailing list for the Saint and Peregrine. You want a strong female character that isn't going to make your fucking eyes roll. Trust me, this crossover hits that mark. You're going to love it. I should know. I'm the guy who wrote it. On that note, guys, thank you all so much. Again, if you enjoyed the content, like, share, and subscribe. My name is Micah Curtis, your favorite vanilla gorilla, your favorite business vanilla gorilla. El Presidente vanilla gorilla. I'll see you guys next time. Later.